To everybody that has contributed and will continue to donate, thank you very much.
Just close by thanking you again for coming up here this evening and spending a little time with us. It's been a pleasure for Greg and Connie and myself to share a few minutes with you, and we invite you to come back often, and we hope you will, because we do have changing exhibits that are going on all the time, and Connie didn't mention it, but we have some things that are happening right now that will be in place this fall, which will give a brand new opening to this facility. But with that, let me just open it up for a few minutes briefly. If any of you have any questions, we will try and answer them at this time. Don't want to take too much time, but if you have a question, please ask me right now. Anybody have a question?
Alan, when did Alf and his brothers come?
My father came to this country in 1929 at the age of 20. At the time he came over, the reason that he came here was because, contrary to today when Norway is a very wealthy country, in those days Norway was really in a depressed state. And my father, his father, my grandfather, passed away at the age of 31. And my father was 9 years old at the time, and he had to step up to being the head of the family with two brothers and a mother. And at the age of 20, he applied to come to this country, came over here to raise money. When he came here, his goal was to raise some money and go back to Norway. That's what he thought he would do. But as it turns out, he met my mother and things changed a little bit. So, Olaf has, of course, become a legend in skiing, and he actually was very, very well known as a young ski jumper and soccer player in Norway before he even came to this country. My two uncles, Swery came 2 years after my dad, 1931, and Corey came about 5 or 6 years along with my grandmother at that particular time.
Tell us about the cabins they built.
The cabins. Okay, and if you go to 62nd South and 23rd East, there's about 5 cabins, log cabins, that are there. They're still there. And my father and my uncles and a gentleman by the name of Montgomery M. Atwater, which is a very famous writer, and he was a snow ranger at Alda. They built the cabins. 3 of them went to the brothers, 1 went to Monty, and the 5th one went to Monty's mother, who was a very famous weaver by the name of Mary M. Atwater. Those of you who are in the weaving art industry maybe recognize that particular name, but she had that particular cabin right there. It was built, they started building in 1947. Dad didn't get started on our house that was on the corner of 62nd South until he finished his tour as the coach of the 1948 Olympic team, and so he started building in 1948. And we lived there, gosh, Barbara, they were still living there when we were first married in 1962. So
yeah, they lived there till Todd was about 2 years old, so it was about 1967.
1967, all of the Engen brothers and my father had moved away from that particular location. But the buildings are still there. One of them that belongs to my Uncle Corey is now a bed and breakfast, and it carries the name Engenhoofs, I believe. Some of you have seen that. So does that answer your question, Gibbs? While we're talking to Gibbs, I want to give him a big shout out, because when we were building the museum, one of the things that became loud and clear to us is that we really didn't have a really good record of ski history in this area. And if we were going to build a museum, we better have something to talk about so that people had a little idea of why a museum was here in the first place. And so with Gibbs and with Greg and myself putting forth a lot of energy, 2 books were written. The first book came out in 1998, and we went through, Gibbs, how many, 2 or 3 printings on that? You know, a number of printings. And in the ski business, let me tell you, that's okay. Because,
that's this one, isn't it?
yeah, that's the one right there. And that's in paper version there, the
Is it for
hardbacks.
sale by the museum?
But, yeah, but we went through about 2 or 3 printings on that. And then the other book, we had material left over from the writing of the first book. I have to tell you this about Gibbs. He's a hard one to work for. When I went there and I showed him my manuscript, it was about that thick. And he said, well, the first thing without even looking at it, Alan, you've got to cut it in half. So that was the hard part of writing the book, is to go back in and edit what you've already written, because you fall in love with everything you write about. And so we did that, and then we had material left over. So what we did with Greg's help, we put together this second book, and we had it ready for the 2002 Olympics. With those 2 books, along with having a museum, it has actually worked really well for us. Yes, sir?
Was the books what drove the increase in the size of the facility? Because undoubtedly you gained a lot of information and realized you had a lot to tell.
You know, I would honestly have to say that I don't want to give undue credit to the books, but I think it opened up a lot of knowledge to people that they didn't have before. And with knowledge, why I think it drove an interest in coming
When
here.
did you start deciding you needed a bigger building? When did you start designing?
You know, we started the actual design work in the early 1990s, but a lot of it was built around the concept of how much money can we raise, okay? And our whole premise was we don't even start on a building until we have money in hand, because we didn't want to gamble on that. So it took a little time. As a matter of fact, it took years to raise the money that we needed in order to put the facility together. We started building in about 1997, 98 time frame, and we put it together. Jacobson Construction were the contractors on it, and Edward Daniels Architects were the architect on it. Peggy McDonough was the lead architect for us on this particular building, and she actually won an award on that building when she got it through. So we had really good people, but it took us a long time to get there, and a lot of it was due to building the foundation through the ski archives and the work that we did with trying to promote skiing, so that people would get a little awareness of just what has truly happened in this area, which is really remarkable. As you go through this museum, you will see lots and lots of people that are true pioneers and leaders that have really made tremendous strides in this area for making skiing what it is, and the tremendous benefits that it's given to the state of Utah economically. Greg, you want to take over?
Any other questions? Yes.
Which resorts were opened first, and what succession did the resorts develop, the ski resorts?
You're tough.
I'm curious.
I'd probably have to ask a little further question of that. Are you talking just Utah, or are you talking
No, in
nationwide?
Utah, just
in Utah? You know, one of the earliest to really start as a foundation ski area was not Alta, it was Brighton. Brighton actually had a little rope tow, it had things going on, and it was actually my father going over the Brighton area into Alta that we got Alta started, okay? So although Alta gets the credit of being one of the first areas in the area, it really wasn't. But you had a whole lot of things that were kind of happening together in a very short span of time. Alta was one of them. You had Snow Basin that was starting up pretty close at that particular time. And then other areas around the surrounding area also started up. You know, some down in the Provo area had what is now Sundance. Okay, you had that starting up not too long after. So between the area of the late 1930s all the way through the late 1940s, you probably had 5 or 6 particular areas that had grown up and started in this area. But having said all of that, if we talk about ski lifts, Alta was the first area to actually put in a ski lift uphill conveyance system like it was. Not the first in the country, but here in Utah it was the first of its time. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, yes.
Any other questions? So let me make just 2 comments, and then I'll close. Linda asked me to close out the meeting. I'd like to acknowledge Walter Jones, my colleague, now emeritus colleague at J. Willard Marriott Library. Throughout this whole history we've been talking about, Walter was part of the initiative along with a very dedicated and talented staff that made all of it come together and continues to help build the ski archives. It is great fun to work with talented people who can do big things and do it in a big way, and on most occasions do it on time. It makes a world of difference. Thank you, Walter. Linda asked me to convey to you our program next month will be on the Salina massacre. And to remind you, because we haven't given you the opportunity, dessert is on the tables in the back, so please take advantage and enjoy. And let me add my thanks, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. We'll look forward to touring the facilities. Yes?
What time do you want us back on the bus?
Oh, probably before midnight. Linda, where are you?
I think if we start loading about 10 to 9, then we can be right at 9.
So it's 20 after. Gives us about a half an hour. We can fudge a few minutes if we need to. But we're concerned about those people that go down on the bus and then have to drive a long way to get home. So drive safely. Have a wonderful tour. Thanks again for coming, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
And you can grab your dessert and come through the museum. I know you're all tight as shit.
Must have been a bigger improvement in those days. Okay, so where is
Take flight. Every step onto the platform, and we'll begin your training. Here's what you'll need to do. Lean forward down the ramp to gain speed. Lean back off the jump to soar through the air. And then lean forward again to stick the landing. You didn't need that speed.
reaching down for the landing, putting their tips into the water first, and preparing for when that snow does fly. Yeah, I tell you what, man, Leonard McPhee, and I tell you what, if you've never seen a World Cup or Olympic mogul skiing competition, you should check it out, because they are amazing. And Heather was one of the best. All right, taking it up to our free ride, we got a Park City boy. He skied on the Jew Tour, and he goes in that slope style in the terrain park and just rips it up. This is Tim Gage.